Hollywood's golden age dazzled audiences with glamour, talent, and larger-than-life personalities. But behind the curtain, it was also a world filled with rivalries, grudges, and secrets. And few stars had a sharper eye for the darker side of the business than Lucille Ball. Lucy wasn't just America's favorite redhead. She was also a woman who rose from chorus girl to comedy icon and eventually became one of the most powerful figures in television. Along the way, she worked with and crossed paths with just about everyone in Hollywood, and she never hesitated to form strong opinions. Today, we're looking at 9 actresses Lucille Ball reportedly considered her greatest nemeses, the women she described as mean, dangerous, or downright evil. Some were legends in their own right, others cautionary tales, but all of them left Lucy with unforgettable impressions. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden stories of classic Hollywood, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next deep dive. Now, let's begin with one of the brightest stars and coldest personalities Lucy ever encountered, Joan Crawford. To the public, Crawford was untouchable. She embodied the image of the perfect movie star, elegant, commanding, unforgettable. But Lucy saw a very different side. She once called Crawford one of the meanest women in Hollywood. Not because of direct competition, Crawford specialized in drama while Lucy ruled comedy, but because of her icy, calculating nature. Beneath the polished exterior was a woman who seemed to thrive on intimidation. In public, she sparkled, but in private, she was condescending, dismissive, and, at times, openly cruel. Lucy, who valued warmth, honesty, and loyalty above all else, simply couldn't respect that. This chilling reputation extended well beyond Lucy's circle. Crawford's own adopted children would later reveal shocking stories of emotional neglect and harsh treatment, confirming the coldness Lucy had sensed years earlier. To fans, Joan Crawford was a glamorous legend, but to Lucille Ball, she was the very embodiment of Hollywood's ruthlessness, and for that reason, she earned the top spot on Lucy's list of enemies. If Joan Crawford represented Hollywood's coldness, Judy Garland stood for something very different, its tragedy. To audiences, Garland was unforgettable, the voice of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the girl next door who grew into one of the greatest entertainers of her generation. But to Lucille Ball, Judy was also a cautionary tale, someone she pitied as much as she disapproved of. Lucy admired talent, discipline, and professionalism, and Judy Garland had all of that, at least when she was at her best. The problem, as Lucy saw it, was that Judy's immense gifts were constantly overshadowed by her personal demons. Years of studio pressure, a grueling childhood in show business, and the destructive coping mechanisms forced on her by MGM executives left Garland with a lifelong struggle against addiction. Lucy's encounters with Judy painted a sad picture. A woman capable of electrifying a stage one night and collapsing under the weight of her own troubles the next. For someone like Lucille, who built her career on reliability and sheer hard work, Garland's unpredictability was frustrating. Lucy didn't just see the damage Judy did to herself. She saw the chaos it created for everyone around her. It wasn't personal hatred in the way it was with Crawford. With Judy, it was disappointment. Lucy recognized that Judy had been one of the most naturally gifted performers Hollywood had ever produced. But in her eyes, Garland squandered too much of that brilliance, letting substance abuse and instability dictate her life. To Lucille Ball, Judy Garland was a symbol of wasted potential, a reminder of what happens when the business chews up a star and spits them out. And while Lucy may not have despised her the way she did others, Garland still earned a place on her list of Hollywood's most troubling figures.
Zsa Zsa Gabor presented herself as continental glamour incarnate,
an accent, jewels, and a flirtatious laugh-first persona for every camera. Lucille Ball, however, saw a very staged version of sophistication. Ball used a blunt phrase, phony elegance on two legs, to describe Gabor's act. She believed the accent tightened and loosened depending on the situation, and that the whole performance extended to a dismissive attitude toward people who helped make the events possible. At a charity appearance, Gabor reportedly charmed photographers and then, as soon as they left, snapped at volunteers and demanded special treatment. That kind of calculated superiority irritated Ball for a political reason too. In an era when women fought to be seen as serious professionals, Ball thought Gabor's act, marrying rich men and playing exotic, encouraged damaging stereotypes that female worth was mainly performance and ornament. Years later, when headlines recorded an incident in which Gabor was accused of assaulting an officer, Ball pointed to it as evidence that the diva persona could shade into genuine entitlement. Bette Davis's reputation as a screen titan was unassailable, but Ball's respect came with a deep reservation about her temperament. Where Davis had intensity and craft, Lucy saw a weaponized acidity. Ball admired real talent, but she bristled when it came with a habit of belittling people who couldn't fight back. Davis had been known to humiliate makeup artists, small parts actors, and designers. Ball overheard episodes where a junior performer was shredded for a tiny mistake. On one occasion, at a dinner, Ball said she refused to sit with Davis's table. "I'd rather keep my skin intact tonight," she told a host. For Lucy, greatness carried an obligation to uplift, not to degrade. Barbara Stanwyck's on-screen toughness and steadiness earned her wide admiration. Lucille Ball, though, told friends the same qualities translated off-camera into a stone-cold detachment that she found chilling. Ball described Stanwyck as flawless but unreachable, able to sob in a scene and then speak about lunch plans without missing a beat. That ability to toggle emotion with no trace of the feeling in between felt to Lucy like a kind of inhuman performance. Worse was Stanwyck's reported estrangement from her adopted son. Ball, a devoted mother herself, couldn't fathom cutting off a child. To Lucy, the emotional distance was more than professionalism. It suggested something missing in the person beneath the roles. Tallulah Bankhead was theatricality unbound, fearless, outspoken, and often frighteningly unpredictable. On paper, she was a draw. On set, she could bring a production to its knees. When Bankhead guested on the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour in 1957, crew members later described rehearsals descending into chaos. She arrived impaired, forgot lines, inserted risque ad-libs that had no place in family television, and sometimes physically disrupted blocking. At one point, she almost knocked over an expensive camera. Ball gave famous names chances, but she also drew a hard line. When a guest's behavior threatened other people's work and safety, the cost wasn't worth the name on the marquee. Bankhead's brilliance fascinated some. To Lucy, the danger of the unpredictability outweighed the novelty. Shelley Winters carried a reputation for being hot-tempered, and Ball's meetings with her confirmed why the word stuck. Winters could be explosive in public and merciless in private. Incidents Ball's circle recalled include a public meltdown at a fundraiser and a reported flare-up that ended with an executive doused with a cocktail after suggesting a small change. Lucy believed Winters sometimes weaponized outrage to get attention or to bend situations to her will. That kind of drama cost people their dignity and their jobs. Ball had no patience for tantrums staged at other people's expense. Ava Gardner combined extraordinary beauty with a sharp, sometimes venomous temperament. Ball's assessment was blunt. Gardner didn't simply sever ties, she delighted in the ruin. Stories circulated of Ava publicly humiliating assistants over tiny mistakes, a ruined steam, a pin out of place, and taking satisfaction in making them uncomfortable. On one occasion, she reportedly sneered about Ball herself, a slight Lucy dismissed, but also took as proof of casual cruelty. Ball believed Gardner's early privilege of being admired for looks alone had left her with little real emotional development. The result, Lucy felt, was a woman who could be breathtaking on screen and brutal off it. Perhaps the most complex name on Lucy's list was Vivian Vance, her Ethel to Lucy's Lucy, and ultimately her close friend. Their relationship, Ball said, began with friction, jealousy, resentment, and barbed fights that could turn personal. Vance believed her casting sometimes came with humiliating conditions. One infamous clause required her to maintain a heavier figure for the character, a proviso that felt insulting. The two argued fiercely. Vance called Ball controlling and jealous. Ball snapped back that Vance should be grateful for the role. They had scenes of real conflict, including a dressing room confrontation over a perceived scene stealer. And yet, over time, the brittle edges softened. As their careers and lives evolved, the pair forged a genuine bond. Vance stood by Ball during painful times when others drifted away. Ball was devastated by Vance's death in 1979. Their shared history was a reminder that relationships in Hollywood can change, sometimes from hostility to loyalty. Taken together, these 9 names, Joan Crawford, Judy Garland, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Bette Davis, Barbara Stanwyck, Tallulah Bankhead, Shelley Winters, Ava Gardner, and Vivian Vance, form more than a roster of grievances. They're a window into how power, image, and cruelty could coexist in the studio era. Lucille Ball's standard was simple and consistent. Watch how people treat the assistants, the pages, the makeup artists. Those small moments, she believed, exposed character in a way rehearsed interviews never would. She tolerated eccentricity and nerves. She did not tolerate cruelty, entitlement, or behavior that endangered or humiliated others. Some of Lucy's judgments have been borne out by later revelations, family memoirs, set stories, and reporting that confirmed patterns insiders had long whispered about. Other judgments remain personal impressions she carried to the grave. Regardless, they show a woman who had earned her right to judge, a performer who became an executive and then used that vantage point to name what she saw as a betrayal of decency.